The committee has done a lot of hard work over the past year. They've made some hard decisions, and as Warren said, have come to a place where it truly is time to have a larger conversation about where the committee has landed at this point. What you're going to see tonight is the fruit of that year's conversation, and it's where the committee honestly is as to what meets our needs and meets our mission for the coming years. And the best way to explain what you're going to see tonight is to actually walk you through some of the last 12 months, some of the journey the building committee has been on, so that you can have some context for what you're going to see. It's different than I think what even the committee began thinking they were going to do 12 months ago. The original task last May was to build a multi-purpose facility to give us additional space for meeting and eating, specifically, according to some, a gym-type multi-purpose room. The idea was that this facility would be an add-on to our existing buildings. We would add it on probably with some slight renovations to our existing buildings. There were lots of discussions of showers for traveling groups or for evacuees, as well as additional classrooms for adults. And so the committee began by going down the Let's Build a Gym road. We had conversations with other Methodist churches that have built gyms over the last few decades, and what we discovered is that very few actually use their gyms as gyms primarily or even at all. We talked with one church in Jackson, Mississippi that built a gym. They have youth and adult basketball teams. They do not play basketball in their facility, nor do they practice in their facility. Most of the newer churches that have been started in the last 10 to 12 years, not just Methodist, but other denominations as well, very, very few of them include a gym in any long-term planning. We talked to our youth, and very few expressed great excitement about a gym. Very few of our young adults got excited about a gym. And so the idea of a gym turned out to be a dead end for us, even though we knew that we still needed additional multi-purpose space. As we continued the conversation as a committee, though, some other needs of our congregation surfaced. The need for additional nursery space became very, very apparent. We have right at 60 children under the age of 5, 16 3-year-olds in Vacation Bible School last week. And there are more pregnant women among us, I'm told. Betsy? Currently, our shared space with Early Encounters limits our capability also of having nursery anytime that Early Encounters is open, and we have very few beds for bed babies on Sunday morning. Nursery is one of our truly emerging issues. We also began to realize, as we looked about the building and began to work with our architect, that we have some significant building code issues, some significant safety issues, and lots of accessibility issues throughout our existing facility. Most of the issues are centered on our children's area, where the upper rooms currently is. We have a children's area that's inaccessible to any child or adult with a disability, and fails to meet a lot of building codes. The choir area, also inaccessible, and other issues as well throughout the facility. The Book of Discipline calls us to address those whenever we have a major building project. The committee also began to feel uneasy about adding an additional building to our current maze of buildings. And we talked openly about the issue of flow throughout our facility. Visitors and even members have trouble navigating our facility. I'll share one brief story about that. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was having lunch, maybe it's about a month ago now, lunch with one of our graduate students, lifelong member of this congregation, born here, raised here, baptized here, spent all of his life here. And he was asking me where Jonathan's office was going to be. And I said, well, we're going to put Jonathan's office in an open room in the old sanctuary. And he looked at me and he said, where's the old sanctuary? And I said, well, it's, the stairs over on the front, it's the building across from Walgreens. And he just kept shaking his head. And he finally said, you're going to have to show me. And so I walked him around behind the stairs and down that hallway. And he looked at me and he said, I never knew this was here. Been here 23 years. Our current facilities are also highly inefficient in terms of power usage, gas usage, even water usage, comparing to other modern buildings of size and scope. So those were some of the things that began to color our conversation over the past year. During that time, we began to work with Albert and Associates and began to talk about a very first concept of maybe what we could do to address our needs. The first concept, since the code and accessibility issues were significant in the children's area, and the current fellowship hall obviously not what we need in terms of space to meet, eat with one another, and that it served more as a pass-through more than a functional meeting room. The first building concept we talked about involved taking down the fellowship hall and the children's area and building back in a new facility between the sanctuary and the southern educational space built in the early 1990s. Regardless, though, of how that middle building was configured, some things became very apparent to us. We were going to lose parking in order to add in what we needed just in terms of multi-purpose space, office space, nursery space, just the very basics. We were already beginning to encroach out into our parking, and what we know is we're never going to grow more parking spaces here. We're not going to grow more land on our site. And we wouldn't gain much other than those items. And really, in order to consolidate nursery space, we were unable to effectively add really more than one additional nursery room. It also placed the staff in cubicles, which for some reason they didn't seem to want to be in cubicles. I don't understand that. I had a nice office in the plan. They had cubicles. Larry, I didn't think there was a problem with that, but they did. And although the concept addressed some issues of crowd flow through the facility, we still ended up with dead corners in what we were able to do. And also we discovered that the structural construction of our newest educational building to the south limited any type of meaningful renovation because almost every cinder block wall on the second floor of that facility is load bearing, which meant for us that moving interior walls would be extraordinarily expensive to change the flow or different patterns for rooms. Also, we discovered that the power for the southern building goes through the middle building of our facility, actually goes up and over, meaning the very back, the southern building, even if it was retained, would lose power, be unusable for stretches during construction, even though it remained. A brief estimate of cost began to indicate that doing renovation necessary to the remaining building to squeeze in a new middle building would be extremely costly and would create, not give us much bang for our buck. I don't know how else to say that other than we would spend a lot of money moving walls, rebracing things, putting back in structural supports in order to do that. So the building committee began the scary process of asking, well, what if? What if rather than patch, we build not only for this generation, but for the next generation? What if we had space that was integrated and built with future additions in mind? What if we were able to build a structure that was much more energy efficient and sustainable? What if we were able to build a facility that was inviting to members and visitors in the community? What if we provided great new space for children and youth and adults that could easily be changed in the future and renovated as our needs for space changed? So we sent Larry Albert and his team back to draw some more. And tonight we're going to present you with that concept, a concept that is not anything that the building committee, I think, ever dreamed we would come up with. But a concept that, as you'll see, involves removing not just the fellowship hall and the children's area, but involves removing everything south of the breezeway and building back in on the exact same footprint, a space that is new and inviting. We're going to present that to you here in just a second. I'm going to let some of that sink in because it's rather shocking if you haven't heard that before. But that's the journey that brought us to that place. It was a lot of prayer, a lot of thought, and what we want you to do tonight is to dream.